Who's Dillingham? Rob Dillingham?
There was a
Timberwolves.
There was a guard who we saw play. Is it Rob Dillingham?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Minnesota Timberwolves great when we were out there in Minnesota just a couple of weeks ago.
Absolutely.
All right, Danny, we are not talking at all about the defensive coordinator search.
We are not.
I think the OC search is way more important, and that's kind of the prioritization for me. But I wonder if people agree with that. First, we can open up the phones on that, 800-636-1067. Is there anyone who can make the case that the DC hire is as important as the OC hire, or more important? Because I think Jaden Daniels is more involved on the OC one, and so I slam the book there, closed, and I tell you that's my argument. Good luck making yours. What do you think? I mean, is there a case to be made? The defense was where they were the most terrible.
Yeah, it was the worst unit. I mean, and it's been so for 2 years. Not only 2 years, but really for 6.
But my argument is
two separate defensive head coaches.
Their defense wasn't very good in year one, and their offense was so good that it didn't matter. That's what they need to try to get back to. Now, I'm not suggesting they can be as terrible as they were on defense in the first 2/3 of the season, but I also don't know that that's the realistic outlook for next year, because as soon as Dan Quinn took over, started calling the plays, they became a much more normal level of bad defense. Like the horrificness of the worst defense we'd seen in years, that went away when Joe Witt lost the play calling duties. Dan Quinn had them at, I would guess, if you just take his time, I'll bet you they were fringe top 22, top 20, something like that.
And that's kind of what we were looking for. But no one was saying be great, although that'd be awesome. It would be fun to be great. But really, go from being atrocious, which is exactly what they were last year, to regular bad. Just be 20th. If you're that with the offense that we thought would be pretty good, you're going to win a bunch of games again and go back to the postseason. Turns out it didn't work that way.
Where are you at on and could you be okay with Dan Quinn calling his own plays?
I don't want that. And here's why. When he's tried to do both, it hasn't worked. And, you look at his defensive numbers. When he's the defensive coordinator, good defenses. There are bona fides there. When he's the DC, go to Seattle, go to Dallas. Like, to me, it's that if you have a world-class 85 Bears, 2,000 Ravens, Legion of Boom Seahawks defense, you can be at the top of the league in a lot of things. Yards per play, pressures, turnovers, etc. If you're just a regular good defense, you got to give something up on occasion. And when he was in Dallas, he's like, you guys are going to get some yards. We're going to turn you over, though. We're going to get some interception. Here, there were no legs to the tripod. Not only did they give up a lot of rushing yards, not only did they give up a lot of passing yards, but they never created turnovers ever. When he's been the head coach and the defensive guy, it has not worked. I think that's why he wants to deputize it. That's column one. Column two, he can't do head coach mechanic stuff without calling the defense. They can't get timeouts right. He can't do play stuff. They are disorganized. They false start all the damn time. He needs to be on his P's and Q's in terms of game management. I don't think he can do both because he can barely do one.
So I don't want him calling the plays next year either, but it has way less to do with what I think he's capable of and way more to do that I think there's just too many good options. There's so many really good D coordinators available that it would be silly when you have an opening to not hire one of these guys. And it would take a lot off his plate. By the way, am I forgetting something? You said when he's done both, it's gone badly. When has he ever done both? I didn't think in Atlanta he ever did that.
So, yeah.
The only time he's ever done both was actually the second half of the season.
Was here.
I actually think it went pretty well defensively.
So let me rephrase that, because you're right, just to call me on it, to clean that up. When he's been the head coach, he has not had good defenses.
Okay, yes,
right? Despite being a good defensive mind,
yes.
And you go, how? Like, I remember thinking this with Rivera for so many years. Like, this is a defensive-minded person that came up through the league as a defender and then a defensive coordinator, et cetera. How can we have terrible defenses? And that's been the case in both of his head coaching styles.
Right, and the numbers on that are, I think, what I had seen at one point. When he is a defensive coordinator, his teams have always been in the top 5. When he has been a head coach, his defenses had never been in the top 14. And the point is, basically, that as a head coach, either his coordinating choices weren't great or his involvement maybe wasn't enough. I don't know.
So I got the numbers right here. So forget about what's on the left side for a second. You could see a lot of single digits for some years, and then a lot of double digits and big numbers.
But what are you looking at here?
So this is his lifetime as a quote-unquote coach.
Yeah.
So the defensive coordinator years, excellent. Head coaching years, it's a lot of 19s through 20s and middle of the pack type stuff at best.
What I'm intrigued by is, again, the names that are out there. Raheem Morris would be a very solid DC hiring. That's something you get excited about. The guy I really want is Jeff Ulbrich, who's currently the defensive coordinator of the Atlanta Falcons. Now they fired Raheem. But interestingly, I find this really curious, actually. They're not allowing him do any interviews. until they hire their head coach, because the report out of Atlanta right now is that they're going to recommend to the new head coach that they actually keep Jeff Ulbrich, which is not the way you should be handling it. It's very old school Redskin.
I was going to say, I've seen that called Jim Zorn one time.
It doesn't really make a lot of sense, but that would tell you that they're probably not hiring a defensive-minded head coach in Atlanta. But maybe, here's how I could make it work for me. If they go get Clint Kubiak, let's say, or Mike McDaniel as a possibility, and they hire one of those two guys, and then you have Ulbrich, that's actually a really, really good DC to pair with your offensive-minded young play-calling head coach. So that would actually be smart. But it's very strange that a team would keep a guy, not let him do other interviews when the staff has been blown out, and then tell the next head coach you should probably have him be your coordinator. That said, I like Ulbrich enough that I understand their thinking. He's my number one choice.
So on the defensive coordinator front, this is way different than the OC, because the OC has a couple guys that are either former recent head coach that still might be in demand. Think McDaniel. Disgraced former head coach. It's not in any danger of being a head coach, but kind of has some stink on him. Think Table. Offensive minds, guys that haven't done it, or pass game coordinators or quarterbacks coaches that are going to get bumped up the rankings, right? The defensive coordinator spot might be an embarrassment of riches. Everyone from potentially Brian Flores doesn't get a head job to maybe Jim Schwartz, who I know interviewed with the Cleveland Browns. Guys like Vance Joseph, Jeff Hafley, Chris Shula, Lou Anaromo. I know he got ran out of Cincinnati, but turned in a pretty good year for the Colts. There are names. There are dudes like Jonathan Gannon, recent head coach. You already mentioned Raheem Morris.
Well, like Chris Shula, just as an example, one of those names, D coordinator of the Rams, he would leave as a head coach. He wouldn't leave L.A. to coordinate somewhere else because he's on a fast track for a head coaching job.
Right, but I was just thinking in terms of, that's fair. I mean, it's not as if he didn't have play calling duties there and we get it somewhere else. So forget about that name. But still, there are so many defensive coordinator names that aren't going to be in that as much in demand for head coaching gigs, just because that's nature. Everybody's looking at that offensive guy. Everyone's going to give McDaniel a chance immediately, right? Not so much maybe the defensive mind.
800-636-1067. 800-636-1067 is the number on Grant and Danny. You want to give us a shout? Give us a call right now on this D coordinator conversation that we're having. Is there a case to be made that hiring the defensive coordinator is as important as the offensive coordinator in this cycle? You're listening to The Fan.